How are we doing today? Welcome to the A.C.E Football Academy. Today I am accompanied by, again, Coach Hamilton. I am Coach Dunham. Today we've got an interesting topic to go over, one that you and I deal with as coaches pretty regularly. Deal with multi-sport athletes. And our question today is playing multiple sports a danger to your kid? And we're going to get some information from some well-known medical entities, as well as some interesting research studies that we've come across. And we're going to try and provide everybody with some valuable information to think if really, are they developing their kid properly? Are they overly exposing them to multiple sports here? What's your take on the multi-sport athlete?
Yeah, it's definitely a hot button topic right now throughout the sports world. You can Google multi-sport athletes and you get hundreds, if not thousands, of articles about, is it good for you? The pros, the cons, things like that. The word you're going to hear a lot on tonight's episode is specialization.
Yes.
Specializing in one sport versus playing multiple sports at a youth level. So,
and let's be more specific about that. When we're talking about specializing in a sport, that means you're playing that sport fall, winter, spring, maybe tournaments in the summertime, or something along that realm where you're only doing one sport year round and you're only focusing on that really at a young age and how that may affect their development as a kid.
So again, we're going to throw quite a few sources at you in this episode. We did a lot of research for this, so we don't want you to think that we're coming up with all this.
Yeah, we're going to reduce us. Yeah, reducing our opinions on this as much as possible. We are going to give our opinions throughout the point here.
But the Sports Health Scientific Journal defines specialization as an intense year-round training. That means 8+ months of a single sport with the exclusion of other sports, meaning you're not going to play baseball because of soccer.
Right.
Things like that. So that is our topic. So I think a good place to start here would just be kind of the pros and cons of it. Let's get in. Let's kind of dive into those. Lots of pros for playing.
There really are a lot of pros, and I think you and I. Well, I'll speak for myself here. I encourage kids to play multiple sports through the year. I want to make sure that we're clear what we're talking about here. If you're going to play multiple sports per season, you've really got to make sure you're not overdoing it to your kid, especially at certain ages.
Yeah, and I think we'll touch on that topic a little bit towards the end of today's episode. Yep. But yes, absolutely, I agree. You should be playing multiple sports. There's so many positives in it, and real quickly, the biggest positive for me when it comes to your child or your athlete or even the players on my team, them playing multiple sports at a young age, at the youth level, allows them an opportunity to truly discover their passion.
And we'll say elementary age kids, to be specific here.
Absolutely. It truly allows them to develop their passion, to discover, oh, I really like this. I never would have thought that I would have liked this sport, and yet here I am. And it was because it was summer and my best friend was going to go play baseball. So, all right, I'll tag along. Let's go play. And you don't get that if I'm playing basketball, or I'm playing soccer, or I'm playing golf, or whatever. I mean, guys, you can specialize in anything now, and I think that's one of the biggest issues is that you can specialize in any sport that you can imagine.
Absolutely,
it can become a year-round thing for you. And so, for me, and we'll dive into some other pros and cons, but for me, the biggest pro is just giving your child or your athlete the opportunity to really discover what they're passionate about.
Well, let me play off of that here. So. And I love the point there, discovering.
Yeah.
I think a lot of kids play sports that their parents played.
Right.
Because their parents say, well, I played football. My kid's going to play football too.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it a real life example here. So I grew up playing soccer and baseball. I did a little bit of karate, but I was pretty much a multi-sport kid, probably up until middle school when I really started narrowing down to almost solely soccer. So my son, I got him into soccer because I want him to love a sport that I love. I
Right.
think any parent, mom, dad, would love to have conversations with the sport that
Yeah,
they grew up
absolutely,
loving.
of
It's
course.
just a great bonding moment.
Of course.
And so eventually he got into basketball, didn't like basketball. We tried baseball. He did like baseball. And he's like, I want to try football. Love football. I played 1 week of football and quit to go play soccer.
Right.
And he loves football, but he wasn't completely into it. And we got towards the wintertime and we're thinking, what are we going to do? Well, the football coach says, come wrestle. I'm thinking, wrestle? I don't want my kid to wrestle. And so I thought, what else are we going to do? So we put it in there. He loves, it's his number one sport. And he got to discover
Yeah, absolutely.
a sport that I knew nothing about. We learned it together. We trained at the house, just goofing off. So he got to find something he enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of parents need to realize that. Sometimes you got to give them the opportunity to discover what their personality is in love with.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a great point. That's a great personal example for you. And I think I'm sure there's several other listeners that whether they've gone through it themselves or they've had kids go through that same type of process.
Right.
I think that is a massive pro here. Another pro that I have written down here, in those early youth years, you're not only are, you developing in other sports, but your body is developing. You're growing, you're getting stronger, you're filling out. Maybe you're tall and lanky and uncoordinated, or you're like me and you're on the shorter side, and so you're dealing with those type of things. But playing those multiple sports allows a wider range of physical development and physical skill and ability development that you're not gonna get if you're just training in one sport.
Absolutely. I mean, you got some sports that really focus on hand-eye coordination, like baseball. You got things that work on power, like football and wrestling. You got stuff that work on speed, like track and soccer. So everything builds
Differently.
building blocks.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
building blocks to developing your body, to getting to those. Not everybody's going to get there, but building to a higher level of physical fitness and your ability to compete at higher levels.
Absolutely.
And so the other side of that is reducing injuries.
Yes.
The more developed you are all over, the Academy of Pediatrics is saying you're more likely to have fewer injuries by playing multi-sports because you're developing all these parts of your muscles and your bodies and everything's getting physiqued.
And going along with that, playing multiple sports also prevents that overuse of certain muscles, of certain tendons, of certain ligaments and joints and all those things. So again, the American Academy of Pediatrics, where we got several stats and statistics that you're going to hear today, they say that a significant reduction in injury by playing multiple sports, strictly because you are preventing the overuse of certain body parts, certain muscles, certain joints.
Absolutely. So you're playing one sport in the fall, you're developing those muscles, and then you go do something else in the winter. Now you're developing other muscles. So there's a balance.
Well, and just like for all the gym goers, you don't go to the gym every day and just work on biceps.
Although some probably do.
You're right.
And you can point them out real quick.
That is true. But, a good gym program cycles through the big muscle groups. And that's kind of what, in a year, as a youth, you're wanting to see. Another positive that I really, really like, and I didn't write down where this came from, and I apologize, but we talked about the physical side of things. But the mental side of things.
Yeah.
It teaches you how to play on different teams. Maybe your soccer team is really, really good. but you play on a basketball team that barely wins a game a season.
I love this. Yeah.
You know, it teaches you how to deal with the highs and lows of life, you know, in different ways. And then we can get even more specific of that, and you can go from being a starter and the top goal scorer on your soccer team to the ninth or 10th man off the bench in basketball, and you never see the court unless you're up or down by 20.
Right.
So those mental aspects of playing multiple sports is so massive.
I love that you bring that up. You're learning resilience, you know.
It's a great word.
The other thing that you're learning here is different coaches coach different styles.
Yes.
So you're learning to handle, maybe you've got a coach that's yelling and screaming during your basketball game. And then you've got a soccer coach that's teaching. And then you've got another coach that doesn't say much of anything. So there's different styles that you're learning up here how to adapt to.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, and that just sets you up for success in life with different teachers, different types of bosses, different types of managers, you know, all those types of things. You know, it's that learning aspect of playing multiple sports that, you know, teaches you your life skills.
Yeah, we've talked about this in previous podcasts where we're not just teaching kids to play soccer, we're training kids to be adults.
Yes.
And to be responsible, to do the right thing. And all this goes into those life lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to us a little bit about the last two NFL drafts.
Well, I got one extra
Okay,
thing
yeah,
to add in
sure.
there. I don't know if you brought this one up here, but there's a thing called burnout.
Oh, absolutely.
So we need to be careful about how much we're getting our kids involved into. You know, are they doing karate after school and then they got soccer practice and then maybe later on they've got baseball practice? That may be a little too much. Or maybe you are specializing at 7 years old at one sport and 3 years later said, God, I am so done going to baseball practice or soccer practice. Kids need breaks.
Well, and you and I have seen it as former high school varsity coaches. You and I have seen it where we've had players who maybe they're not D1 caliber, but they could go play somewhere if they wanted to. And their sophomore, their junior year, their senior year, you know, they're telling us, hey, can you talk to this coach? Can you send this film? Can you do this, this, this? And then you kind of get through that senior year. And you're like, hey, what's going on? What are we going to do? And they're just like, Coach, I'm done.
Yes.
I'm done.
And you can see it in their eyes.
You
They're burnt out.
Yep.
You know?
So going along with that, incredible stat here, and you talk about that burnout. 40 million youth playing sports. Okay, 40 million youth on a given day playing sports. 70% of those kids.
Say that again.
70%. 7 out of 10 of those kids are going to quit sports altogether. Not just a sport. They're going to quit sports altogether because they're burned out.
That's very true. There's other part of that to look into is what's after 13? They're going into high school.
Right.
So now they're trying out for all those sports.
Yeah,
all
definitely.
these kids are on all these club teams. They're all getting funneled in this one high school. And sometimes they get cut and they don't take the time to try out something new.
Yeah, absolutely.
We talked about
Great
this
point.
before, discovering something that could be their new favorite.
Great point.
Maybe they tried out for basketball and got cut. Well, why not go out for the swim team or whatever they've got available? You know, don't just quit something you've played for so long. Learn something new.
Yeah, and then that just leads itself to you gave us the stat. You gave me the stats before we started press record, but it leads into how obese we are as a country and how out of shape we are as a country and how honed in on our electronics and our gaming system and our phones we are as a country because I'm quitting sports. What else am I going to do?
Well, I'll give you that stat now. I believe it was from the American Academy of Pediatrics. Prior to COVID, the whole shutdown, the country was about a 19% obesity rate between children and teens.
Okay.
Post-COVID, we've gone up to 22% of obese kids of children and teens. So that's an increase. you can blame that a little bit on COVID because
course.
some of that wasn't available, but the fact that it went up, period, is alarming.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really is. And something you and I talked about is, I remember being a kid and, just on our street growing up, playing wiffle ball in the front yard, playing basketball,
Absolutely.
playing horse, playing a game of football over at the neighbor's house, getting outside and playing. Of course, we didn't have the technology that we do today, but it was still there. I mean, I'm going to age myself a little bit here, but I had a Nintendo 64. I had the first PlayStation, so I remember those things. I had those things down in my basement,
Sure.
but I was still outside playing pickup basketball games.
I remember when I played Atari, so I'm older than you. Mainly, and of course, our parents regulated it. It was so brand new that we were playing video games on rainy days, or it's freezing cold outside, or it's 100 degrees. But when it's a good day, we were outside playing.
Absolutely.
And that takes us to a next point of what is lacking in kids. It's pickup games.
Yeah.
People in the neighborhood aren't calling each other up saying, "Hey, meet us at the park. We're going to play some b-ball.
Yeah.
We're going to play some soccer. Let's go play some beach volleyball." It's just not happening anymore. And here's the crazy thing. There's so many positives to just pickup games with your buddies. No coaches, no parents.
Right.
It's just you and your buddies. So a peer-led little pickup game increases, obviously, player development, whatever sport it is, because you're having fun.
You're playing, yeah.
The second thing is creativity. Who isn't doing something goofy or wild, just testing it out with your buddies?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who hasn't tried a stinking bicycle kick with their buddies out in the backyard about brooking your neck? That's me.
Yeah.
Engagement, you're talking to your friends. You're not on your phone. You're not on a device. You're not playing Xbox or whatever. Right. You're talking face to face, throwing jokes, socializing.
Yep.
You're challenging each other. How many times have boys been together and, challenged each other to one-on-ones?
Oh, yeah.
Or your team versus my team. The loser buys lunch or some kind
Absolutely.
of thing. The last thing is we're developing leaders. There's leadership skills. Who's putting that together? Who's forming the teams?
Yeah.
Who's putting the rules together?
I'm captain.
Who's saying the ball's out of bounds or not?
Right.
And who's, breathing down some scuffles that may be going on because it gets a little too intense. So pickup games, they're important. And we need to be pushing our kids to go play more pickup games in our neighborhoods.
And when we say pickup games, again, notice we're saying games. We're not saying pickup soccer. We're not saying pickup basketball.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're just saying go outside and play.
Mm-hmm. Play kickball for all I care.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great break. I know you and I both, again, when we're getting back on this topic of specialization, you and I both have spent soccer practices playing kickball. We spent soccer practice playing dodgeball.
Yeah.
Because you need that break.
Well, they need the fun.
Absolutely.
They need to have that thing in their head that says, "Oh, I want to go back to practice. So we might play lightning or kickball
yes.
or something goofy that coach brings up randomly."
Absolutely.
The fun matters.
Absolutely. And
even in the pros.
Oh yeah,
the fun
absolutely.
Matters.
A lot of the great example. I have about a 30-minute overlap when my two teams practice together.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we'll scrimmage or do something like that. But the other night at practice, I ran for like 10 minutes, just a goofy little head, shoulders, knees, and toes reaction game. And they laughed. They had fun. When I said, okay, let's get down to business, they were, one more round. Just bringing that aspect back into things is so important. And oftentimes when you are specializing, you don't get those things because it's intense training all the time. And this is going to lead into our next thing, but if you're going to be elite, Dunham, you have to give me 19 hours of hard soccer work every single week for the next 10 years. And I'm going to get you to a D1 program, or I'm going to get you to the MLS. But I need 19, 20 hours a week of in-your-face, hard as you got training.
Which is false promises. If coaches are giving you that at young ages, be skeptical of it.
Yeah.
So speaking of elite, I found a survey where it talked about elite NFL players.
Absolutely.
So I believe it was the 2022 NFL draft. They looked at all the first round draft picks. 30 of the 32 kids that were drafted in last year's draft were multi-sport athletes in high school. 30 of 32 were multi-sport.
Just to add on to that, the year I did a little further research, the year before that, 2021, it was 27 of 32. So again, still that massively high number that clearly appears to be increasing. So that myth of to become elite, you have to specialize early has been proven just that, a myth. Right. Multiple times with multiple athletes.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's important to recognize. So, elite is just how you're made. Some people can. There's I'm not sure what a statistic that says, in order to become elite, you need to put in 10,000 hours. It's the 10,000 hours rule.
Yeah.
Where it says you need 10,000 hours in a specific sport in order to become elite. Well, to me, that's a false promise, because not everybody is going to be an elite athlete, even if you put in 20,000 hours. It's just the way you're made. So if you're driving your kid to play sports year-round because you want them to be a pro player, you're pushing the burnout, you're pushing injuries, you're pushing some mental stress.
Absolutely.
They need breaks. So another thing that the American Academy of Pediatrics brought up was it discourages single sport specialization prior to the age of 14.
Yeah.
So basically, right before high school, they should be playing whatever they want to play, whatever they love doing. There's nothing wrong with making it, soccer in the fall and swimming in the winter, and then basketball in the spring, and whatever in the summertime to do some tournaments, whatever you got to do. But it gives them breaks from other sports.
It does.
It gives them a chance to miss it, to have fun when it comes back. And so you really got to manage how we're scheduling our kids' time. Don't you have a stat about certain kids who are overloaded with their time schedules?
So I think it's very clear. I think you and I are both very pro multi-sport.
Absolutely.
People.
Through the year.
But then we swing to the other side of the pendulum. So, Coach, I'm not going to say this player's name.
Yeah.
But this is a high school player. Played for me in the past, previously, playing high school right now. This was her fall schedule. Ready?
Okay.
She left school about 2:45 every day. 4:30 soccer practice. 6:30 basketball practice. Got home about 9 o'clock. She said anywhere from 9 to 11 or midnight was homework. She was in bed about midnight, up at 5 a.m. to go to school the next day. And then she was repeating that 5 or 6 days a week.
And how old?
She is a junior currently.
Okay. So at least she's not 8, 9, 10
Correct.
years old. So at least her body's developed. I think we've heard from previous podcast guests that girls usually stop developing by, was it between 14 and 16?
Age, yeah.
Somewhere around there, 15, 16. Yep. So she's probably 16, 17 by this time. So she may be able to handle it. The problem is, how long can she handle that?
Right.
That's scary. That's a lot going on with little sleep.
That's what she and I talked about. The American Academy of Pediatrics says if you are doing 16 plus hours a week of any sport, you are significantly increasing your risk for injury.
Absolutely.
So you figure she's doing 4 hours of practice 5 days a week. Let's take the lower number, 5 days a week. I mean, she's already at 20 hours a week that she is working her body. She's putting her body through a grind. That's not including the game day stuff that that I'm sure goes on as well. So we are against specialization at a young age. You and I both,
especially the elementary ages.
On both of our teams right now, I have girls that play all kinds of sports, which I love, which is great. I try to go watch them play at those sports. But at the same time, there's that other side of the pendulum when you're doing too much at one time.
Yeah.
And that can also, again, we've thrown the stats out at you, that can also be dangerous. That can also lead to burnout and overuse and injury. And so it is a fine line. I don't think there's anything wrong with attempting to play a sport a season or even two. I go back and forth on the 2 sports a season thing. I think if you have 2 coaches that are willing to work with each other and say, yeah, hey, look, go to soccer on Monday, go to basketball on Wednesday. Our game days don't conflict very often because a lot of times soccer on the club side of things is on the weekends. So if you have coaches that are going to work together for the good of the athlete, I think it's very possible. Now, when you add that 3rd sport or that 4th sport, I think it gets very difficult.
Well, let me add something in here. And we've talked about this before in a previous podcast of things parents do, things players do that drives crazy. One thing that parents need to start doing, listen to your kid.
Yes.
Are you driving the multiple sports per season and they're just doing it? If they're saying, can I have a break?
Yeah.
You need to take that seriously. They're telling you they know their bodies,
Yep.
especially at a junior.
Yeah.
And if they're saying, man, I could use a season off. Can I get a break?
Yeah.
You've got to listen to that. They're giving you the warning. I'm breaking down.
Absolutely.
And either I'm going to get an injury, I'm going to quit, or mental breakdowns. These are real things. So talk to your kids. Are they wanting to do multiple sports? Are they getting burnout? And another thing that we're going to start ending off our little podcast here is the American Academy of Pediatrics said one last thing. Your kids need 1 to 2 days off every week. That's important.
And that means
every week.
That means doing nothing. That doesn't mean like a light practice or a walkthrough. It means a night off.
That should be out playing with their friends.
Right.
That's what they should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Playing those pickup games.
Get outside.
If they want to spend their night off playing a pickup game, great.
Sure.
But
they should be out laughing hysterically with their friends, joking around, goofing off, having some fun, and getting away from the stress of drills and high intensity training. This is why when the EPL and the MLS, they have a 3-day break between games because they need the break. Well, some of those are strictly days off.
Yeah, and then they take these international breaks, and I know that's not for all players, but for the majority of these players, those are days off. There may be some light. I'm sure there's some light training going on, but it's a break for a reason. Coach, one thing before we sign off here tonight, I want to ask you about.
Okay.
Different type of athlete, because I think I'm much worse about this than you are.
Okay.
But I coach soccer teams in the fall, winter, spring, and summer. Okay. I coach soccer teams. What do you say to the athlete who, say, 4th grade, 5th grade?
Okay. So we're talking 9, 10 years old.
10, 11 years, yep, somewhere around in there. Who has just told mom and dad, I want to play soccer. I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to play anything else. Soccer's my thing. It's what I like to do. I want to play soccer.
Okay.
What do you say to that athlete?
The first thing I'm doing is I'm having a conversation with them. Hey, do you just love soccer that much?
Right.
I'm also thinking, have we tried other sports? Have they given it a chance? I think if they only want to do that sport, it's important that the parent regulates that, where they're getting breaks. Sometimes maybe give them a whole winter of taking that time period off. If you think they're mature enough to make that decision where, that's my sport, I love this, don't overdo it. Yeah. Don't start doing 2 teams with some personal trainings and then you're doing workout sessions. Don't overburden them. Be cautious with it. If they just want to do that sport, I don't see that there's a major problem with it. Yeah. But continue listening to your kid. Keep having those conversations of, are you good? Do you want to try something else this season? Right. How about we take a break? How about instead of doing tournaments over the summer, we just go have some fun this time?
Yeah.
have some conversations and pay attention to how they're acting. Is there a change in behavior because not all kids are going to come tell their parents that there's issues going on. So at that age, you have to monitor what's really going on there. So it's important communication, things we've talked about many, many times. Have those conversations.
Absolutely.
Well, we've had a good conversation about multi-sport athletes. Is this a danger to your kid? I think the biggest thing we've come across is regulating and communication with your child there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there are smart ways to be a multi-sport athlete. I think the studies show the answer to our question is no. Being a multi-sport athlete is not a danger to your kid. As a matter of fact, if you're doing it the correct way, it's going to be beneficial to your child.
Absolutely. So if you have any comments to what we said today, you agree, or if you disagree, I would love to hear how you disagree with our comments today. You can get that on our Facebook page or on YouTube. Again, this is the A.C.E Football Academy. We'll catch you on next time.